everyone, welcome back to the 100 Movies Bucket List series here on CM42 TV. Review, discussion, thoughts video number 3. The Coen Brothers classic, modern day classic, No Country for Old Men. This is review number 3, or film number 3 that we've watched from the 100 Movie Bucket List poster. If you don't know, this is a poster that someone out there has made, don't know who, but someone's made it, with 100 movies being selected. They have been covered up by, you know, the stuff you get on a scratch card. I don't know what the correct thing is. You scratch it off, it reveals a picture of the movie, and by the end you should have 100 different pictures on this one poster. I'm not going through them all and we're reviewing them here on CM42 TV because why the hell not? No Country for Old Men. This one, the best picture in 2007. And back in 2007, that meant nothing to me. I mean, to be honest with you, I think nowadays I'm trying to get away from like taking things like, you know, Oscars, Emmys, Academy Awards, I know the same thing, but Golden Globes, things like that. Try not to take them too seriously because really it's just an opinion, you know. It's like I could come on here and do my Oscars in February time, you know what I mean, and people would be like, oh my god, it won the CM42 TV Oscar, but it means nothing. It's just my opinion. It's just what I thought was the best film. So when you see a film like this and you hear, oh, won best picture, then it immediately you kind of take notice and you go, I better check it out and see if it's... First of all, we always judge it, and that's always a bad thing. You go into watching these films that won best picture with a total like, this better be good then, you know, explain to me why it was best picture, and that can hurt a film. You know, it all depends on how really good the film is, you know. Does it hold up? You know, a few of them did, a few of them don't. A few odd choices recently. I believe Shape of Water won best picture this year, and I really don't understand why. But anyway, that's not about that. We're going to talk about 2007 here, best picture, with Tommy Lee Jones, Javier Bardem, and Josh Brolin in this Coen Brothers film. Now, for years, when I first watched this in, say, 2012, for a good 4 or 5 years, I said that this was like one of my favourite films of all time and it's in my top 10. And then recently, maybe 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, I watched it again and I didn't think it held up, you know, as much as I remember it. You know, I remember it being this really tense and really aggressive, action-packed film. And I was a bit kind of like, that might not crack the top 10 or top 15 even of my favourite films. I actually think I might have done it before the podcast we did earlier this year. We did like a top 15 movies of all time episode for episode 40 of The Good Bit, you know. It was a big deal. And I think I might have watched it in preparation for that. So, and I didn't think it held up as much. It kind of got bumped off my top 15 list. But now watching it for this, you know, and I've got no order in terms of how I want to watch these films. It's just whatever, you know, I'm in the mood for, whatever comes up, you know. So the reason I watched this one is just because, you know, I was in that mood. I was in the mood for kind of an intense film, and it's weird because, you know, you watch these great films often, but sometimes, you know, there's so many good ones nowadays, you know, they're quite similar. You kind of lose track of what's what and what scene comes next, and, you know, when your favourite films of all time, you kind of know the structure of the film, you know, this bit's coming next, this bit's still to come, that bit's already happened because you've just watched it. But this one I always kind of is always a bit of a blur, because not that there's lots of films like it, but just because, you know, maybe it's quite samey to other thrillers, you know, and it's a Coen Brothers film, so they kind of have that stamp on it, you know. But watching it last night for the 100 Movies Bucket List series, and to scratch off the thing on the poster, this film is absolutely worthy of being on anybody's top 10. I didn't forget how good it was, because I know how good it is, but I feel like I might have... Back, you know, when I watched it earlier this year, maybe I was expecting too much or whatever, and now I went into it with sort of lower expectations and was blown away again. This film is absolutely wonderful. It is absolutely... It's a masterpiece, and it is really something that not a lot of people talk about. You hear it, you know, No Country for Old Men, great film, but it's never really considered, you know, one of the best ever, and it really should be. So let's see what happened here. The Coen Brothers won Best Director. They also won Best Adapted Screenplay. And Javier Bardem won Best Supporting Actor. Now let's talk about him. This also won Best Picture, as I said. So 4 Oscars for this film in 2007. So let's talk about Javier Bardem. So this guy plays a character called Sugar, Anton Sugar. And he was actually an inspiration for Chris Jericho back in 2008 when he turned heel. Everything comes back to wrestling for me. But anyway, this guy, obviously I don't know much of his work. This is pretty much one of the few things that I know he was in the Pirates of the Caribbean, but I can't really think of many things else that he's in that I can remember off the top of my head. This is always going to be the film that he's known for, I think. He's just got such a sinister look about him. He's just got such a sort of blank, cold stare in his eyes. You really believe everything he says. But then last night when I was watching it and I was listening to what he was saying and stuff, he really is a bit of a... You know, he talks a lot of nonsense, do you know what I mean? He really does. He talks nonsense, and he obviously believes in whatever is fed to him and what goes through his fucking weird mind. And the reactions from other people to him are rightfully so. You know, you watch it before and it's just dialogue, you know, it's just right. But now I guess that I'm more, you know, equipped with films and stuff, and I kind of know more about things in terms of the inner workings of the industry and being an actor and being in a film and that sort of thing. I guess I'm picking up on these things more often now. I'm watching through different goggles now. So watching this character through an actor point of view as well, first of all, one absolute dream role to have as an actor, especially if you're a bit weird, like I'm assuming Javier Bardem is, like quite quiet and quite reserved, quite introverted. That's what I get from him as a person, never mind the character, but maybe he was just very convincing in the character. But anyway, the amount of dialogue he has isn't really that much. He maybe has I don't know, 30 lines in the entire film, 25, 30 lines in the entire film, in terms of times he speaks, you know, I don't know in terms of actual sentences he has, but in terms of, like, times he speaks and he's up, you know, which is unbelievable they can have that effect on you with that little amount of, you know, dialogue, whatever. So, and that voice as well is very slack, and he kind of has everything that he says is very, you know, and when he speaks like that, you kind of take notice, and I mentioned a couple of videos ago in the Gladiator review that I don't like really quiet and really, you know, I'm really going to mumble and what I'm saying you're going to have to listen to. I don't like that because you have to go, what the hell, and it kind of takes you off. But when it's done right, like in this film, then it's fine because it's a character trait. You know, when Russell Crowe was doing it, you know, and Joaquin Phoenix was doing it, I was getting really annoyed in Gladiator. But the fact that Javier Bardem's character, first of all, was the only character that does it, for the most part. You know, you get a couple of Josh Brolin lines where it's quite low or whatever and quite monotone, but this way he speaks as part of his character, you know. How much have you ever lost in a coin toss? And you're like, a coin toss? Do you know what I mean? You're sitting forward and you're going, what is he on about? You know, I ask you what time you close, what time do you close, where do you live, you know, and it's like, what is this guy thinking? And that's exactly what you need to do in a movie like this. A Coen Brothers movie that's already quite weird, you know what I mean? And it's quite, you know, distinct in the way that it's made. There's lots of different elements to make you take notice. So when an actor can really stand out in a character that has very little dialogue and very little, you know, conversing with other characters, you know. He talks to, whatever his name is, Llewellyn on the phone and stuff. And then let's talk about Josh Brolin. Josh Brolin is absolutely magnificent in this film. And I feel like in this series I'm going to use a lot of wanky terms like magnificent and whatever, but he is. He's unbelievably good in this film just because he plays a very likeable character that's a feckin' thief, you know? There's something about him, I don't know what it is about Josh Brolin, but he's always had this sort of likeable factor to him. Even in newer films and even in older films, you know, when he's younger. I think it's the Goonies he's in, he's very young. I can't remember, but in this character who's literally stole money, he's on the run. And I mean, if you found money, you know, and he's a hunter, he's killing animals as well, and it's always quite disturbing. And you know, he's doing his nosy, you know, he's showing up in other people's business. You know, he's found all these cars and all these dead people, and there's obviously been a big shootout at a drug deal or a money deal or something like that. And he's found this money that he doesn't know has got a tracker in it. And I suppose I should probably explain the film, but he takes this money. It's like $1 million in this briefcase, and he goes, right, I'm taking this, and he just drives away. But he also sees this guy that's still alive in like a truck, and he's just asking for water. He just needs water, and he doesn't have any water at the time. So he takes the money home, and he can't sleep. He's thinking about this guy, and he goes, what the hell? And he takes water down to this guy. He feels bad for this guy. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's how we start liking him, because we see that he's actually a nice guy. He goes and cares for this suffering old man. And he takes a jug of water or a carton of water down to this guy. And when he gets back there with the water, the guy's been shot. You know, there's already been someone there. And he looks back up at where he parked his car, and there's people like looking around his car, and he's like, oh my god, there's people there. And then, you know, the people come down and drive, and they see him and stuff, and he ends up running away with this money. So it's one of those films where it's just like, you try to remember parts that happen, but every single time I watch it, it's like, I forgot about that bit, and that's so great how they did that, and you kind of forget about it. It's fresh in your mind, and that's what I love about it. I think that's what you need in a film that can be regarded as one of the best ever, where it's kind of fresh every time you watch it, and you find new things every time you watch it, you know. But he's so likeable, Llewellyn, his character's name is, and then he's got his wife, he sent his wife away to be safe and stuff, and then the whole film is basically Javier Bardem's character searching for Josh Brolin's character to get the money because there's a tracker in this briefcase, and it's not until halfway through the movie that Josh Brolin, Llewellyn, finds the tracker. And that's such an amazing scene. He's sitting in this motel, and he finds the tracker, and then he hears like doom doom, and he's like, there's the door down the hall, and oh my god, he's there, Sugar, and you see the feet, you know, coming at the door, and then he walks away, he turns off the light and stuff, and it's like, oh my god. But it's tense every single time. It's, you know what's coming, but you're still totally hooked, which is the absolute key to a brilliant film. And this is a 10 out of 10 for me. The only thing that lets it down is sometimes it gets a little bit slow and samey. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, there's so much stuff that's gone down, and it takes you on a ride, the film, and it's, in many ways, this is a good thing. You know, it takes you on a ride where you're up and you're curious what's happening and you're tense, and then it's back down, he's back home, and then he's back at the shootout thing again. So as the film goes on, it keeps doing that. So there's a big moment with Sugar and Llewellyn, like a shootout, and then it's down again. There's a conversation, like he ends up in the hospital, and Woody Harrelson shows up, and he has like a sort of monologue in the hospital. That's like a slow bit, and then it gets to another big shootout, and there's another dialogue bit with an old guy in a cabin. You know, it's a bit like that. It gets a bit samey. Not to mention Tommy Lee Jones in this film plays the sheriff, who is incredible again. He doesn't really have too much to do. But he's just, you know, the nice sort of guy in charge, the nice sheriff that's just kind of looking out for his town, looking out for the people he knows. He kind of knows Llewellyn, you know, he recognises his truck and stuff, you know, and just wants him to be okay. So he's kind of in the middle of the whole thing, he's trying to find stuff, but then he ends up being too late for numerous things, you know. So, crazy film. Could watch it any time and not be bored. But again, there is some bits it's like, right, get on with it. A bit like Gladiator, you know, at the end you're like, oh my god, this film's been going on for 2.5 hours. Get on with it. This is only about 2 hours long, which is perfect for this sort of film. You know, sometimes you don't want it to be too short because there's loads of different character things you don't want to leave unopened, you know. So, brilliant film. I can't recommend this film enough in terms of, you just want a good watch. If you want to just be tense, you know, you're not going to be disappointed, you know. And I did say earlier on I was a little bit disappointed before. I did go in with, you know, expectations of watching it and being one of my favourite films ever. But if you've never seen the film before, go in thinking it's going to be a good thriller, and you're not going to be disappointed because it's so good. It's so well made. The story is told excellently. It's set in, I think, 1980, early 80s, you know, so you've still got that isolation. There's no phones, there's no social media, there's no cameras. You know, that's what I kind of like about it. You know, it's just the money, the tracker, the guns, and the characters, you know. So, yeah, brilliant film. Nothing really to fault it other than it can be a wee bit slow sometimes. And it's one of the rare occasions where a character who speaks like this and is really soft-spoken, you really have to pay attention, really, really works. You know, maybe I'll do a whole video like that and just see if people will watch the whole way through. So yeah, the best film we've watched so far in the series, No Country for Old Men. It's going to be hard to top in the 100 Movies Bucket List series. Until next time, folks, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you check out the other videos, and you can follow me on Twitter at CM42TV. Thank you so much, folks. Take care of yourselves and stay safe.